passing the Ratepayer Protection Act. As you will hear from our speakers, BG&E's gas delivery rates have escalated to crisis levels. Utility regulation might seem complicated, but it's pretty simple. The more a utility spends on its infrastructure, the larger its opportunity to profit. This creates a powerful incentive for wasteful spending, and we rely on our legislators and utility regulators to keep careful watch. Unfortunately, a 2013 law to improve the safety of our gas system has gone terribly wrong. While the STRIDE law was passed to incentivize gas utilities to more proactively fix their aging gas infrastructure, it lacked critical safeguards on spending, exacerbating the existing incentive to overspend. To make matters worse, the law also lacks language requiring spending to prioritize safety, and the STRIDE law has not delivered on safety promises. According to federal data, According to federal data, BG&E's hazardous leaks have increased from 3,000 in 2014 to over 4,000 in 2023, despite BG&E spending $1.4 billion on its pipeline replacement project and passing these costs on to customers. Gas utilities are required to maintain the safety of the system without increased financial incentives, so fundamentally, we think the STRIDE law should be repealed. Short of that, we wholeheartedly support adding safeguards to the law to control costs and focus on fixing leaks through pipe repair or replacement. We are so grateful for the leadership from Attorney General Brown and People's Counsel David Lapp in calling for the legislature and regulatory intervention to address rising utility rates. We are so grateful to Delegate Embry and Senator Washington and their co-sponsors who are introducing the Ratepayer Protection Act. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers, and we hope to have time at the end for a few questions. First, I want to welcome Attorney General Brown. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Emily. I want to thank Emily, your colleagues at PERG, thank all the consumer advocates, environmental advocates, energy reform, sustainable energy advocates. I want to thank President Cohen for hosting us, for being here. And of course, I want to thank Delegate Embry. A loss to the Office of the Attorney General, where she was once employed, but a big gain for the Maryland General Assembly. Your compassion, your passion, your commitment that you bring to this work. So thank you very much for your leadership on this issue particularly, and how you've been able to bring together local and state officials to address what many of us consider an ongoing emergency, and that's the escalating rise in energy prices. We're here because too many Marylanders can't afford to keep their heat running and their lights on. In 2023, Baltimore Gas and Electric shut off electricity to 80,000 homes, leaving thousands of families literally in the dark. And that's 14,000 more than the record number of shutoffs the year before in 2022. So the Maryland Office of the Attorney General, we support efforts like Delegate Embry's to bring utility costs down in the Ratepayer Protection Act. Low-income households across Maryland pay on average more than 10% of their monthly income towards their electricity and heating bills. In Baltimore City, the number is 26%, the highest of any metropolitan area in the country. In December, I co-published a commentary in the Baltimore Sun alongside People's Counsel David Lapp, and I want to thank David for his extraordinary service to the people of Maryland as the People's Counsel, their voice in front of the Public Service Commission. In fact, David is doing such a great job that yesterday I got a call from someone urging me not to participate in this press conference and characterize David as a little bit off the hook and extreme in his views. And yes, he is extreme, because when it comes to protecting Maryland ratepayers, you've got to be extreme in this business. So thank you, David, for your job. So the crisis has only gotten worse since David and I published last year that commentary. Because of rate increases from BGE at the beginning of this year, now it's even harder for Marylanders to pay their utility bills. Every month, too many people must make an impossible choice. Keep the heat on or pay for groceries or other essentials like prescription drugs, like rent, like the mortgage. Utility providers have an obligation to provide safe and reliable services at a price that everyone can afford. And if they don't fulfill that obligation, the General Assembly should step in. Delegate Embry's bill is an important tool in reducing Marylanders' utility bills and ensuring that gas utility companies are good stewards of consumers' money and don't raise their rates because of wasteful spending. The stakes are nothing short of life-threatening. According to the Maryland Department of Health, 26 people have died of cold weather since January 29. Extreme cold weather kills. We must act now to lower the cost of utility bills. Maryland families cannot afford to wait. And with that, it's my pleasure to call to the podium good friend, passionate public servant, Delegate Embry.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General, for not just your advocacy on this issue, but so many in front of the General Assembly. We're so lucky to have you. I also want to thank Council President Zeke Cohen for not only for hosting us, but being a longtime advocate on issues affecting ratepayers. And Councilwoman Ramos is here. I want to thank CCAN. I want to thank SEIU. And there's so many other groups not here. Yes, and we have Councilman Jones and Councilman Parker. Yay!
Okay, man.
Oh, this is incredible. So I just want to start off by saying thank you. This is an incredible coalition. People who would have been here if they could but can't are Senator Washington, many of the members of the House delegation, many delegates who have signed on to co-sponsor this bill. AARP, the Maryland Energy Administration, we have so much support, so many environmental groups, so many consumer rights groups, and so many smart people who recognize that this makes sense. And I want to my greatest thanks to David Lapp, who raised the alarm years ago on the impact that the STRIDE Act was going to have on ratepayers down the road. He has been consistently doing the work, examining the data, and making the case overwhelmingly. The data just gets clearer and clearer with every report, every filing that he does. So he's really the hero of this bill, and I want to thank him very much. And Emily Scarr, who is an incredible advocate and has been behind last session in this, making this bill a reality. The final thing I want to say is this bill is not repeal, which may be the right thing, but this bill is not that. It is a very common sense, reasonable attempt to make the STRIDE law work for the purpose it was intended, which was safety. It has been used to just replace gas infrastructure wholesale. That was not the purpose of the bill. The purpose was to prevent gas leaks. So this bill returns the STRIDE Act to its original purpose and protects the pocketbooks of ratepayers. That's all it does. It also makes sure that our actions taken at the front of the PSC are in conformity with our climate goals. So again, common sense objectives. This bill is an essential step to protect ratepayers going forward. And so I just want to thank everyone who's here again and turn the mic over to David Lapp. Oh, Council President Zeke Cohen, excuse me.
David Lapp, you're first.
I'm sorry, you're first.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thanks to Delegate Embry in particular and Attorney General Brown for his support, and council members for the support here today. STRIDE reform is the single most important action Maryland can take to address the massive utility bills customers are facing today. Our office, state agencies, and elected officials are being flooded with calls from customers who are now seeing the devastating impacts of 10 years of the STRIDE program with its promotion of aggressive gas infrastructure spending. BGE's gas delivery rates have tripled since 2010 and increased by 58% in just the last 6 years. These rate increases are being driven largely by STRIDE. Unlike competitive businesses, utilities generate profits by spending customer money. If they can persuade the government to endorse more spending through statutes or regulation, captive utility customers are stuck paying more for growing investor profits, even if that spending is unwise or unnecessary. That is what has happened for 10 years under STRIDE, with billions spent on gas pipe replacement. Unchanged since 2013, STRIDE supports building brand new gas systems, but these gas systems are built for the horse and buggy. Today, household gas appliances face declining markets due to stiff competition from modern electric appliances and government policy. Unfortunately, today we are just seeing the beginning of the customer bill impacts of STRIDE. Utilities are only about 1/3 of the way through their programs and won't finish them for about another 20 years. But customers today have only paid about 3% of what they will pay in the coming decades under business as usual. BGE still has about $3 billion in future spending to replace its old gas system, and Washington Gas has more than $4 billion. Without curbing the fast rate of spending, in just about 10 years, most Maryland gas customers will be paying about double the distribution rates they are paying today, and could pay much more depending on highly volatile gas supply prices and customer departures. It is up to the General Assembly to fix this problem. The Public Service Commission has said it has limited ability to address gas infrastructure spending unless the legislature enacts changes to the STRIDE law. Now's the time for the General Assembly to act. Thank you.
Thank you, David Lapp. We're going to bring up Council President Zeke Cohen.
Thank you to Delegate Embry, to Attorney General Brown, to Mr. Lapp, to Emily, to Ricara, to all the advocates gathered here, to my colleagues that have joined us, Council Members Glover, Ramos, Parker, Yitzi, Schleifer, and Jermaine Jones, and welcome to City Hall. In this house, we do the people's business. We do not do BGE's shareholders' business. The Baltimore City Council will stand up for residents and ratepayers, not a large utility that's seen enormous recent profits year after year. Over the next few months, the council will take action to support Baltimoreans who are struggling to pay their BGE bills. That starts today as we support the Ratepayer Protection Act, and I am deeply grateful to my friend and our colleague Elizabeth Embry for her leadership on this important issue that is impacting all of our residents. In the last 2 months alone, our office has heard from older adults on fixed incomes who are faced with unsustainable increases on their BGE bills. We heard from families facing shutoff notices on some of the coldest days of the year, including a young family with an infant who had their service shut off during the extreme cold we faced in January. And we heard from constituents who told us they make every effort to keep their thermostat down, but their bills continue to go up at a rapid rate every single month. While those families and our local businesses are struggling, BGE is raking in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues. And while we are grateful for their decision to temporarily pause service shutoffs, that's not enough. The reality is that ratepayers are footing the bill for their gas pipeline build-out. This approach contradicts our state's aggressive climate change goals, and there is no real incentive for them to rein it in. That is why I'm proud to support this legislation today and work hand in hand with our partners in state government. We also want to make sure that the Public Service Commission hears us loud and clear. Our residents are suffering. They are charged with regulating public utilities just like BG&E. When we came before them to oppose the multi-year rate plan, we warned that out-of-control bills would be the result. And here we are. This week, I'll be calling a series of hearings on this issue in Council Member Schleifer's Legislative Investigations Committee. I again want to thank Delegate Embry, Senator Washington for their leadership, Attorney General Brown, David Lapp, Emily Scarr, Ricara Jones, all the advocates that are here, my colleagues on the council. And I also want to thank Senate President Ferguson and Speaker Jones for advancing important legislation on this issue yesterday. We will stand united, and we will not stop until our residents are protected. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Ricara Jones with 1199 Healthcare Workers East.
Good morning. My name is Ricara Jones. I am the political director of 1199 SEIU. We are the largest healthcare worker union in the country, representing over 10,000 healthcare workers in Maryland and DC. We are here today specifically because BG&E cannot continue to raise rates while holding on to millions of dollars in profits and making money off the backs of working families in Baltimore City. The folks who care for our loved ones, teach our children, provide city services, have all seen delivery rates triple since 2010. My members have shared stories of bills that were $250 this time last year and are well over $500 due to the greed of BG&E executives. Over the last 10 years, their profits have tripled from $147 million to $485 million, while the paychecks for the people that deliver essential services that we all rely on remain stagnant. There are no extra dollars at the end of the week to pay for these staggering rate hikes. BG&E is asking workers who are barely making ends meet to decide to keep their homes warm and have the ability to cook a hot dinner for their families or pay their rent, having to choose between paying for gas in their homes or gas in their cars to get to work. Today, BG&E is holding a rate increase open house to explain why the bills are so high. BG&E, we don't need an explanation. We need you to lower the bills. So that's why I am thankful again for the leadership of our elected leaders who are here with us today. And I urge the Maryland General Assembly to help provide some much needed relief by passing the Ratepayer Protection Act. Thank you.
And finally, we're going to have Brittany Baker, the Maryland Director with Chesapeake Climate Action Network.
Hello everyone. It's time for BG&E to clean up their act. Their profiteering has caused unnecessary expansion of gas infrastructure and rising utility bills. Their double down on gas is even affecting legislators at the state level, decreasing confidence in clean energy goals and electrification initiatives. Our clean energy future will lower utility bills and create healthier communities. Gas utilities must end this wasteful spending and invest in clean technologies. Instead of charging ratepayers $7 billion for sunken gas costs, we need to be investing in energy efficiency, weatherization, clean energy, and protecting communities. Thank you.
Short and sweet, I love it. So again, thank you to all of our speakers and the legislators and coalition partners for being here today. In closing, I want to share a couple tips on how to manage these high bills right now. To be clear, you can't weatherize our way out of rate increases, nor can we energy assistance our way out of rate increases. We have to fix the underlying problem, but both can help. So if you're having trouble with your bill, you can seek energy assistance through the state. You should work on weatherizing your home and getting your furnace serviced regularly, which can keep your home warm while using less energy. And most importantly, contact your state legislators to tell them to take action. BG&E's multi-billion-dollar pipeline replacement program has failed to improve safety and is a financial disaster. We urge the legislature to intervene now to repeal or reform STRIDE before things get worse. We will accept some questions, but I want to make clear that we were only entertaining questions related to today's press conference. Thank you.
Is the Public Service Commission not doing its job to protect ratepayers if these bills keep going up and BGE just gets to pass this over?
I'm going to let David take this one.
The Public Service Commission has a tough job, I should say, but yes, we think that over time the Public Service Commission has not done its job of effectively regulating the utilities. And I'll give you an example of why. Today, BGE's gas rates for their delivery service, and that's what the commission primarily regulates, is the delivery service, not the commodity costs. So it's the bottom blue on the chart over here. BGE's gas rates are 90 cents a therm today in 2025. Washington Gas's rates are 46 cents a therm. They're providing essentially the same service. If you go back about 10 years ago, Washington Gas's delivery rates were actually higher than BGE's delivery rates. But we can see that the commission has approved, really high increases for BGE and not Washington Gas. And that tells you if, they're providing the same service, that tells you that something's not going right with the way the utilities are being regulated.
And then there's another portion of this. Spending has already been approved from what you said. There's only 3% of what the ratepayers have paid back for this STRIDE program. It seems like ratepayers are going to see increased bills for the delivery before they see any relief, even with this ratepayer protection.
Well, every increase in rates has to be approved by the commission. Under the multi-year rate plans, the commission has already approved another rate increase for 2026. It's going to go up to 96 cents a therm. That's the base rate. There are certain riders and adjustments that actually usually bring it higher than that. So customers today see more than 90 cents on their bill, and they'll probably see more than 96 cents next year. But every rate increase after that has to be approved. And if Exelon meets its investor targets for capital infrastructure spending for gas and for electric, rates are only going to go up. In contrast, we have an electric utility whose rates hardly changed over 20 years. About 20 years they did not come in for a rate increase. And that's because they were investing at the same time as they were depreciating older investments. So it's not automatic that rates have to increase. But once those investments are made, you can't really pull them back. The commission can make decisions about the appropriate return on equity that they give the utilities, which we think has been too high, and that could have a lowering effect on rates. But once that spending is made, it's really difficult to pull that back because of the way the law works.
And I would just add, while the multi-year rate hike in 2023 did approve a scaling up of rates, the commission has entertained the option to off-ramp BG&E. At a hearing this fall, they explored the option to stop the 2026 rate hike before it went into effect. So they do have that authority. This is the same legislation that was proposed last year, although we're working with stakeholders to make technical revisions to the bill if necessary. This bill is about stopping the bleeding, right? If you find yourself in the hole, stop digging. By passing this bill, the legislature can save Marylanders tens of billions in dollars in future spending. Yeah.
It's been mentioned that it's a very modest bill, and it is a modest bill. Utilities don't need STRIDE in order to make investments to replace pipes and that sort of thing. They don't need accelerated financial recovery. And with this statute passed, we will still have to go back to the Public Service Commission and argue with BGE about what appropriate levels of spending are. So it does not guarantee anything, but it gives offices like ours representing residential utility customers tools that we can scale back that spending. And it also sends a signal to the Public Service Commission to slow this spending down.
I'd say what we're talking about today is delivery costs, which are directly controlled by the utility. So gas delivery costs, electric utility costs have also doubled in the last decade. Doubled since 2020. They have not increased quite as rapidly as gas delivery rates, but we're talking about the delivery rates, which is different than the commodity rates. These are things that our state legislature and our state regulatory agencies have direct control of. You're right, people should be worried about increasing commodity rates around electricity in the near term, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, I can open it now.